And joining us to talk about matters political, social, community and culture is our normal Tuesday correspondent. Well, she's not normal, but she has former Member of Parliament, Regional Councillor, City Councillor, lawyer, landlord and just any part of the despotic colonial government. At some stage she's had a part in it. Is Hilary Calvert. Nice to join you this afternoon, Hilary.
Hello, Michael. I'm also of Scottish ancestry.
Oh.
Which wouldn't surprise you.
No. That would be the bit that doesn't pay for the round of drinks at the pub, wouldn't it?
Oh, that's a bit harsh.
It's just that I remember you. Oh, you say that. That's all right. It's coming up to election, we can say anything we like. We've got 10 or 11 days of hyperbole left.
Well, actually, some can, but, and the platform allows people to say more of whatever they like. But that doesn't mean that we should all abandon reality entirely, does it?
No. But there has been an abandon. Well, actually, the reason I wrote, that I introduced the Maori Party's policy is because they seem to have escaped scrutiny from the mainstream media that, well, even New Zealand First are getting now and the other parties. Why is that?
Well, that's because if you say something like, doesn't that mean that you want two bites at the cherry? Or there's no way you can ask a question of the Maori Party without their response to be, that's just the sort of rabid, colonised crap that I expect from racists like you. Mm. That's the answer to whatever question you were asking. So there's no point asking the question because you just get into crap so quickly. Well,
but also I guess because there are some news media organisations, Stuff is the obvious one, that are totally and fatally compromised because they've decided that their interpretation of the Treaty of Waitangi should govern their relationships with the world, so they can't possibly ask those questions, can they?
No. Well, I was talking to a retired lawyer married to a possibly retired judge or current judge or whatever, who I had a quarrel with because they said it was proper to have separate, like Maori Health Authority and things, and I said, but they're not elected. You know, some of the people who are running some of these things, and I don't like them being not democratic. And the opinion expressed was, yes, but that's the way they do it. So they're allowed to do things their way, because how they do things is they just let, whoever the local chiefs prevail, and we do things democratically, and it's appropriate for them to do that. And this is judicial thinking. Goodness me.
Yes, it's amazing, really.
Frightening, really.
It is frightening. Because
I wanted to challenge you.
You carry on.
Yeah, about something you were saying earlier with David Parra.
Yeah.
Where you were saying nobody is talking about the cost of living.
As in the political parties. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually they are. It's just that you have had it, it's buried such as that you're not noticing it. For example, if you make a new piece of law about the deductibility of interest rates for not only everybody else who deducts it, running a business, but also landlords, and if you change the settings a bit on landlords and tenancies, then you will do two things potentially. You might have more access to housing, rental housing, and you might have significantly cheaper rental housing. Now, that seriously affects the cost of living for people who are renting, who often have less money than the people who own their own houses.
Sorry, how does that work, Hilary? I'm struggling to see how that would reduce rents.
Well, if somebody is currently, if they can't deduct their interest, so they've borrowed a third of the cost of buying a rental house, say, and they borrowed 2/3 and they've put a third in themselves, that interest on that 2/3 is not deductible. So they've got to find that extra money somewhere, the money that pays the interest on their mortgage. So they're going to put the rent up. They have to put the rent up because they're not going to cover their costs.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. But I think landlords are like supermarkets, that even if you were to remove the deductibility, like removing the GST from fresh fruit and vegetables, they'll just simply use that as their new quantum. Oh, gosh, I've got a windfall. They won't necessarily pass that on to tenants.
Yeah. That's why some of the political parties think that's a bad thing to do, because that opinion you've just expressed is one that flies in the face of reality. So that's not what they do. I mean, you can just put people into a basket and think, evil, nasty landlord.
No, but I'm just serious. It's just human nature. So now I can take my tax deductibility off my my home that I'm leasing out, and now I can actually claim for it. Oh, listen, first thing I'll do is I'll knock on the door of my tenants, say, I'm reducing your rent by $20 a week. That's just not real. What is real? People won't necessarily reduce rent, but what is real is that it won't go up, and they've got money that they can do alterations and other things with. Why it's gone up is what I'm saying, out of proportion and people can't afford, is because the government has insisted on some housing changes that aren't just like insulation that are healthy houses or getting rid of mould and things. They're seriously stupid things. Like, we couldn't rent out. Have you been into our house? I'm not sure. We couldn't rent out our house that we live in because it hasn't got an extractor range hood. What?
Now, it's quite...
You've got no extractor range hood in your kitchen?
No.
Oh, and my God.
That means we couldn't expect somebody to live in it.
I wouldn't live in it. I wouldn't even visit you if you didn't have an extractor. Good God.
Exactly.
Perhaps that's why you haven't got an extractor.
Anyway, the cost of some of the legislative things that have been put in by the current government has had the effect that they were told it would have, which is that it's increased the rent unaffordably. So all I'm saying is that a variety of things the government can do in the way of policy can have a significant effect on cost of living, but it just isn't, I'm giving you some money. It's, I'm not taking money away from you, or I'm changing the settings so as you'll end up with more money in your back pocket.
Okay. But now I'm looking at I was making the point about the 100-day plan of National, should they get in, and pointing out there were 23 separate things they're going to do, but none of them mentions actually reducing the cost of living, the stuff that matters.
No, I'm saying that things that they can change can reduce the cost of living. They just aren't put out because they're not the government giving you money. Things they might have the effect on the cost of living, like the.
But I mean, that's not going to help me if I've got a mortgage, is it? I mean, I'm in my current position. Great, you've got interest tax deductibility as a landlord, Hilary, and that might improve your life and the lives of others, and potentially, you say, the lives of your tenants. But for the rest of us who own our home, that's not going to make any difference at all, is it?
Yes. I'm just using this as an example of something that doesn't look like it is a policy about the cost of living. So you can have all sorts of policies that change the setting and that help people in a variety of ways, or you might have policies about health that allow you to keep more of your own money because you don't have to pay for it to go places. Like if we live where you or I live, we will have to pay for our own PET scan. We will go to Christchurch or somewhere else and have to pay for our own PET scan. Or in my brother's case from Hamilton, he has to pay for health care that he goes from Hamilton to Auckland to get. People in Auckland don't have to pay for it. So you change some of those settings and you change the money in your back pocket or my back pocket or my brother's back pocket.
Okay.
So just saying, policies might not look like they affect the cost of living, but they might well do.
Having said that, though, I thought David Farrar gave an honest answer. He said, well, actually, they're a bit careful about what they're promising because they won't be able to have much of an influence on this. And if Nicola Willis does a mini budget prior to Christmas, and that does look like what she'd have to do, it won't be aimed at reducing necessarily the costs for us ordinary folk.
Well, that's why it's important to have the settings change if you can, so it doesn't cost money. It isn't a budgetary item, but it helps people and might save them money.
Mm.
So in some cases, that's all the point I was making, is it isn't quite as simple as whether it looks like it's I'm giving you money or I'm taking it away.